Here we are again with a draft analysis for the NCPL's Commander Draft. Today we're on number 20 and we're going to be looking at Robin's team. So Robin drafted Feraligatr as his captain, and Hariyama, Rotom, Piloswine, Yanmega, Typhlosion, Tauros, Meganium, and Hypno. I scored his overall team of 41. So one thing about Robin's team is it's extremely well balanced. Extremely well balanced. He has a lot of ways to deal with super effective moves, double covering himself in a few different ways, and all across the board he has offense, defense, speed, momentum, hazards, and ways to get hazards off the field. So let's get into the first category here is offense, which I scored a 9.5. Leading this offense, in my opinion, is Typhlosion and Feraligatr. More so Typhlosion, surprisingly. Now, I didn't think this to be too much. Like, I thought it was a threat, but not as much of a threat as it's been in the shield side. That Eruption set is super, super hard hitting and very hard to deal with. And then Heavy Duty Boots really allows him to just come and go as he wants. And then, of course, Feraligatr having Sheer Force, either Dragon Dance or Swords Dance. We've seen Robin do Agility as well. Just make both of them super potent, and then both covering each other make them they can switch into each other if needed. I don't think that's the case all the time, but they definitely can. But also with the offense, we have Hariyama, Rotom to some extent, Piloswine to some extent, Yanmega, Tauros, and Hypno as well. So we'll get into the Pokemon. So Feraligatr having Dragon Dance, Liquidation, Ice Punch, Crunch, Agility, Aqua Jet, Earthquake, Dragon Tail, Hydro Pump, Ice Beam, Rock Slide, Swords Dance, Seismic Toss, Superpower, Swords Dance. Oh, I said Swords Dance twice, Toxic, and Sub. So Feraligatr generally likes to be physical, but as we've seen, Robin has around him special, and that really makes it so people have to guess, and it's super important in draft. Feraligatr doesn't have bad enough special attack make it not viable. It is viable, and then he has coverage in special attack, and of course with Hidden Power makes it really viable as well. So having Hydro Pump and Ice Beam coverage and then Hidden Power is really, really useful. And then, of course, Agility. So, not to mention that you could run Scald, and Sheer Force still works with Scald. So, I'm going to get into... because I didn't actually look at that part on the special side. So Scald will definitely be procced with the Sheer Force. He does have Focus Blast as well, but that will be procced by Sheer Force as well. Ice Beam will be procced, so definitely viable. His special attack is only 79, but with Sheer Force boost and Life Orb if he has it, really, really good still. So as for Feraligatr, that's kind of what we're going to see. I mean, Robin's run a couple other things, but we'll get into that on the defensive side. But as I said, his team is extremely well balanced, and you're going to notice that with all of his offensive Pokemon, they're all bulky. So they can kind of spread the EVs around and make them more viable, more useful in different ways. So a perfect example coming up here is Hariyama. So Hariyama having access to Thick Fat or Sheer Force make it really hard to predict what he's going to bring with that Hariyama. Is it going to be a bulky set? Is it going to be attacking set? Hariyama having so much HP, base 144, make it really viable to either run either way. I mean, it's never going to be one shot unless you're, a Specs, Stab, Psychic, or Flying move. Even then, you're hard pressed to say that's going to one hit, depending on the EV spread in defense or special defense. So Hariyama having tons of coverage. The Assault Vest set is usually the set that's really great for him, just because it gives him that extra bulk on the special side, and then he's really good at just running 4 attack moves because he has such good coverage. That coverage being Close Combat, Knockoff, Heavy Slam, Stone Edge, Ice Punch, Bullet Punch, Earthquake, Fake Out, Fire Punch, Poison Jab, Thunder Punch. So I mean that's pretty huge coverage, and I think his attack was 112 or 120. I'll bring that up for you guys right now. Yeah, 120 base attack, so I think that reaches 370. I'm not. It's high 300s. I won't stay on that too long, but yeah. So it makes it really hard to deal with this Pokemon just because of the sheer amount of bulk that it has, and then if it's thick fat or sheer force, it can easily come in and go as it pleases if it needs to. Having stab 120 fighting move is just it's hard to deal with. So this is going to be the common trait of his team, being able to hit really hard and being able to absorb more than one attack. And speaking of that, we have Rotom. So Rotom is one of these Pokemon on his team that is going to allow him to have coverage in a couple different ways here. Immuning the fighting type and normal type attacks is really great for his team. It's going to help with the Piloswine weakness, the Tauros weakness, and the Levitate as well is really nice to help that Typhlosion out. So Rotom is an all-around great Pokemon for his team. It really stays in tune with what he's drafted here. So classic Rotom stuff. I mean, you have Defog, you have Pain Split, Will-O-Wisp, Toxic. So we have here Trick, Volt Switch, Thunderbolt, Shadow Ball. And on this particular Rotom, since it's Ghost Electric, Hex Will-O-Wisp or Hex Toxic is super viable, super annoying, very good, as we've seen Robin already use. So, and then of course Rotom has screens. That's really what you're going to be seeing from Rotom. You're either going to be seeing the bulky set. You can normally tell right away what it is. Bulky set with Pain Split, Will-O-Wisp, Defog, stuff like that if needed. Or you're gonna have, a nasty plot set with Shadow Ball, Volt Switch, Thunderbolt, whatever other coverage he needs, Dark Pulse. Shadow Ball's more than good enough though, since it covers the same. So yeah, Rotom really rounding out his team and going with the common theme of his team here. So next on the list for offense, now this is kind of like Suedo offense. The thing is Piloswine is so bulky because his HP reaches 404, and then he has thick fat and he has good defensive stats as it is, and he can run Eviolite. He can just afford to run attack EVs, and with high stab attacks like Icicle Crash and Earthquake, and then Priority and Ice Shard, it's super annoying and obnoxious as a defensive Pokemon. Smacking you for 40%, it's super obnoxious. So as I said, this is the common theme of his team here, and you're going to see it on basically every single Pokemon here. So Piloswine having access to Earthquake, Ice Shard, Icicle Crash, Rock Slide, Superpower, Curse, and then some other notable moves, but these are definitely going to be the moves you're going to see more often. And then of course the defensive options, which I'll get into later. But moving on the list of offensive Pokemon, we have Yanmega. Yanmega, actually one of the Pokemon that I wanted to draft myself. A really good Pokemon with that ×4 resistance to fighting, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. And the addition to heavy duty boots make this Pokemon really viable in draft. Its speed tier is good enough, 95. I think that reaches 317. Access to U-turn, and then great abilities in Frisk, Tinted Lens, and Speed Boost, allowing it to either run as a Scouter, as we've seen Robin do, or a Specs Wallbreaker, as we've also seen him do. Tinted Lens makes it basically unmanageable, as we've seen him 2-hit KO a Steelix, probably special defensive invested Steelix, with Tinted Lens, Bug Buzz. So it's a really big menace to deal with. And then on the flip side, we've seen a defensive Yanmega, which I will get into as well, which is good used in the right way. So, but Yanmega's options for offense, you have Bug Buzz, Air Slash, Giga Drain, Psychic, Ancient Power, Shadow Ball. Generally, you're going to see Bug Buzz, Air Slash, or Bug Buzz, Giga Drain, depending on the coverage of the matchup. And then Oh, I missed that Psychic as well. So, but like I said, you're generally going to see Bug Buzz and Air Slash and Gauge Rain depending on the matchup here. And then, of course, we have Typhlosion, which I kind of already mentioned, but I will mention its other offensive options. We have Eruption, Flamethrower, Focus Blast, Earthquake, Curse, Extrasensory, Flare Blitz, Thunder Punch. And then one thing I want to mention is the thing that Typhlosion can do. Side note, again, he's got bulky stats. The thing is these stats aren't bulky if you're taking it into an overuse perspective, but in this type of draft, these base stats are actually not bad. So, but what I will get into is this mixed set. You can run either or you can run mixed. And you can also, an interesting set which I seen on the ladder was Work Up Flame Charge, Earthquake, and Flamethrower. Was pretty obnoxious to deal with. Of course, things like Moltres completely wall that, but still pretty hard to deal with that type of set. So that's really all Typhlosion's got as coverage. I mean, Hidden Power definitely adds to it as well, but that's as much as Typhlosion gets, and that's probably why people overlook this Pokemon. But Robin's definitely been using it to his advantage right now. And then, of course, we have Tauros following in suit of the theme of his team here. We have Tauros with Intimidate, super annoying. With his bulky stats, I will read them out for you here. 75 HP, 95 defense, and 70 special defense. So Tauros can definitely afford to run his EVs elsewhere. He has base 100 attack, base 110 speed. So again, with that high speed tier and decent attack, he can afford to run those EVs in defensively, or he can run an Assault Vest set since he has access to Sheer Force as well. His coverage goes as far as Close Combat, Throat Chop, Earthquake, Body Slam, Iron Head, Mega Horn, Zen Headbutt, and Rock Slide. Of course, Earthquake and Mega Horn aren't procced by Sheer Force, but still work well. It could be worth noting his really good special attack coverage. The thing is he only has base 40 special attack. He could proc this with Sheer Force and Life Orb, and it'll do a fair amount. Very circumstantial cases, which I was discussing with Zeb a little while ago, is a flamethrower from a flamethrower or Fire Blast or flamethrower, Sheer Force boosted Life Orb can still one hit KO things like Durant, which is still important to know. So in those very, very situational ways, it can be useful, but generally you're going to see physical attack only from Tauros, and then a couple defensive options, which I'll get into later. Moving along the list, though, we have Meganium. Not much offensively, as we actually have seen him run offensively a lot. It does have Swords Dance, it does have Giga Drain, has Petal Blizzard, has Curse, Dragon Tail, I think I said Earthquake already, but that's really as far as its coverage goes. Really, if you're seeing an offensive set, you know that it's gonna either have Earthquake or it's gonna have Petal Blizzard. Probably not gonna have Dragon Tail because it's low base attack, not really needed. I mean, you could, but yeah, its coverage doesn't go very far. Still very good though. Its all around stats are really, really good. So totally viable to run that set and catch somebody off guard. Last but not least, we have Hypno here. Again, following suit with bulky stats and being able to run it in multiple different ways. Hypno actually having on the recommended Smogon is Belly Drum, something that I actually looked at when I was versing Robin. In that offensive switch that he made, I definitely knew this thing was a setup Pokemon. So this Pokemon actually has a lot of potency as an effective sweeper, as we've seen. Belly Drum maxing out his attack, having Drain Punch, giving him reliable recovery, access to Zen Headbutt, Fire Punch, and that's and Thunder Punch on the physical side. And then of course you have Calm Mind, you have Dazzling Gleam, Focus Blast, Nasty Plot, Psychic, Psyshock, Shadow Ball, Signal Beam, and Future Sight. Just all around great Pokemon. It has tons of defensive options as well, which I'll get into. Again, base stats are good. It can definitely be ran in both physical special or defensive Pokemon, and this is the point of Robin's team, and this is what makes it really hard to prep for him, and probably make a lot of people uncomfortable when they do prep for him, is because you don't know what he's going to bring and what he wants to bring. Really, is what it comes down to, since his team has so many options for coverage, right? But next up we have the defense, which I scored an 8.5. So his defense is more like bulky offense. He doesn't have like just like defensive Pokemon. Like, I mean, Meganium's pretty defensive, but it has offensive options. A staple defensive Pokemon would be something like, I don't know, Pyukumuku is what I would say is like defensive Pokemon. Or like, you know, Registeel, something like that. That you generally are going to see defensively 90% of the time, 99% of the time. So for defensive Pokemon, you have Hariyama, Rotom, Piloswine, Meganium, and then Hypno are going to be main defensive Pokemon that you're going to see. Hariyama, like we discussed, having Assault Vest or Thick Fat, or both, make it extremely annoying because it can come and go as it pleases. Tons of HP. It's very hard to wear down. It takes a lot of time and a lot of perfect switches and reads and predictions and stuff like that. So, but defensive options in terms of moves, it has Toxic. But like I said, it's going to want to run the Assault Vest set more often than not. So you're generally going to see Assault Vest 4 attacks, which is going to be way better than a defensive Hariyama anyway. So, and then you have Rotom, and like I mentioned, you have Pain Split, Defog, Volt Switch, Hex Will-O-Wisp, Hex T-Wave, super obnoxious to deal with. Hex T-Wave is honestly super obnoxious. I'm surprised we haven't seen that yet. That was something that Dragapult was doing on the ladder, and it was super annoying to deal with. You know, Hex Thunderwave, you turn out into a Pokemon that, you know, that you want in front of it, and then you get parried and all that stuff. So, and as we've seen in this season here, hacks are everywhere. So, I'm surprised we haven't seen that set. But yeah, your classic Rotom. It's the best. The best thing about it defensively is what it does for his team. That Ghost and that Ghost typing and Levitate helps it cover things for Typhlosion, Piloswine, Tauros, and you know, like it allows him to mix up his switches. You know, you think he's gonna go into Rotom for a fighting type, he goes into Hypno. You think he's gonna go into Hypno for a fighting type, he goes into Rotom. You know, you think he's going to go into Rotom for the Earthquake, he goes into Yanmega and he gets an offensive switch. This is what makes his team hard to play against and hard to prep for, and you know, good. So, and then we have Piloswine. Really defensively, as far as it goes, is Stealth Rock's Toxic. That's what it has as defensive options. You can get into like Rest Sleep Talk, but I mean, you can do that with everybody. I'm not going to mention it every single time. Since it's a set that's good on lots of different Pokemon, and basically every single Pokemon has Rest Sleep Talk, so just all depends if you have any boosting moves, right? Which he does, he has Curse. So, and then we have Meganium and Hypno. So Meganium, you know, people gave this Pokemon so much. I don't know if it was a meme or if it was trolling, but when I seen Meganium stats, I was like, okay, well, I mean, those are really good all-around stats. Whether its move pool is low or not, and then lo and behold, I look in its move pools. Move pools is perfectly fine for a defensive Pokemon. It can't get set up on since it has Dragon Tail. It has Leech Seed. It can also set up in your face, so you can't just like set up on it thinking that it's not going to do anything back. And then it has Aromatherapy and Synthesis, and Screens and Refresh and Toxic. It has good defensive options. So let me read his base stats for you, because I don't know, a lot of people overlook this maybe, or if it's trolling, not sure. But you have 80 HP, 82 attack, 100 defense, 83 special attack, 100 special defense, 80 speed. That's pretty damn good. I mean, you can run this offensively, defensively, special defensively. You can run it utility based. I mean, you can run it as a lead. It's got Magic Code. It's a pretty obnoxious Pokemon. So, and then like I mentioned earlier, with its offensive options, I mean, you just don't know what this Pokemon's going to be doing. So, Not to mention this gives him an earthquake coverage as well. And like I was saying, the theme of his team is that he just has a lot of options to switch, and that mixes up his opponents. So you think he's going to go into the Rotom because of the Levitate. He goes into Meganium, and it's an offensive Meganium. Sets up Swords Dance. You don't have anything for resisting resisting grass types. He Petal Blizzards, takes 50%, and he starts wearing you down like that, right? This is what's good about his team. Like I mentioned with other people's team, I think it was Jared. Somebody I mentioned had extremely good defensive, or maybe it's Calvin, offensive options on his defensive Pokemon, and that's something that his team does well, is defensively. So, but moving on the list, we have Hypno. I mentioned his offensive stuff. This is what makes him great as well. His defensive options, he has Hypnosis, Screens, Future Sight, Switcheroo, Taunt, Teleport, T-Wave, Toxic, and Wish. That Teleport, Wish, Future Sight set is going to be super underrated. Whenever that's brought, if it's brought, very good set. Getting him a free switch into any of his wall breakers, Hariyama, Typhlosion, Yanmega, even Rotom, and then of course for Alligator to set up a Teleport with that negative priority, giving him a free switch is super good. And then like I mentioned, Hypno's stats are good enough to be able to do that. Wish passing as well. Wish with Teleport. You guys remember Clefable, super obnoxious with Teleport Wish. Basically everybody had it, so something that Hypno can run heavy duty boots, Wish Teleport, get his sweepers or his wall breakers in for free, right? So very good Pokemon. That's why his defense is 8.5. Moving on, we have Speed, which I scored. Sorry, 1 sec. 21, 50. Which I scored an 8. So he has good speed options. You have Tauros, Yanmega, Typhlosion, Rotom, and for Alligator and Meganium, I think. For Alligator is actually lower than Meganium. Yeah, 78. Meganium's 80. So his team's moderately fast around the board, barring Hariyama and Piloswine. But Hypno, I think, reaches 75 as well. 67, so still not bad. Not slow enough, I would say, to be running Trick Room. I mean, he has Piloswine and Hariyama that can use it, but basically every other Pokemon is kind of fast. But the main things here is that Tauros at 350 and that Yanmega with speed boost, Typhlosion at 328. Very important speed tiers to be breaking. Breaking that 284 speed tier is really nice on multiple Pokemon, and then breaking the 317 as well is really good on Pokemon. So not to mention he has speed control in the forms of speed boost on Yanmega and Dragon Dance or Agility on for Alligator. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, so like I was saying, the Agility and the Dragon Dance on for Alligator. So these speed tiers are important in this type of draft because it allows him to outspeed a lot of different Pokemon. And then, of course, his defensive options being somewhat fast is very important as well. That Rotom and Meganium speed tier, as we've seen, Miltank, for example, is super annoying. Hold on 1 sec. That Miltank having that really high 95, I think it is, speed tier, super obnoxious to deal with because it's outspeeding the defensive options you're switching into it, and it's allowing to do it's basically doing what it wants to do. So sorry, I got someone downstairs. It's like boggling my brain right now. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. But yeah, that's really it for speed. Tauros being super hard to deal with, especially if it's scarfed at 3. Scarf Sheer Force, I mean, it's super good. It's like having Life Orb and Choice Scarf. I mean, that's what it is at the same time. So very hard to deal with, especially with its coverage. But next up we have hazards, which I scored an 8. Um, so he doesn't have a lot of options for hazards, but he does have he does have other options for getting hazards off the field. But his only stealth rocker is Piloswine. Piloswine is extremely reliable in setting up rocks, so that's why this isn't lower. And then you have Rotom for Defog and Mega for um, totally viable. We've seen him already run Defog on Yan Mega. If the matchup is right, being able to resist certain moves with Yan Mega is important, and then heavy duty viable. Risk you can allow it. It's good as a defensive Pokemon. So, but that defog on Rotom, and then I don't think he has any other form. Yeah, he has no other form of rock. So, Stealth Rock on Piloswine and defog on Rotom and Mega. That's what you're seeing. So if you see both of these Pokemon, once you find out if Yan Mega is offensive or defensive, or Rotom is offensive, you'll know what that other Pokemon is, and that's kind of how you should read the matchup. That's really it for his hazards. I will mention the amount of status that he has on his team. He has lots of status, and he's very good use of it on lots of different Pokemon. For Alligator, Piloswine, Rotom, and he could do it on Hypno and Meganium. Boros, he's made use of it as well. So he has Toxic, T-Wave, and Will-Wisp on multiple different Pokemon here that he can totally make use of. What was it? Yeah, it was the Mega Charizard X set. That Will-O-Wisp set was really obnoxious to deal with. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that from Typhlosion, although Typhlosion is very important as a Hull Breaker and potentially Choice Scarfer and stuff. So, moving along the list here, we have Momentum, which I scored a 7. So the lowest score of his team. Now his team does have some Snowball to it. That Dragon Dance for Alligator, that Speed Boost Yan Mega, and then Belly Drum Hypno. Those things can Nasty Plot Rotom. Those things can definitely get out of hand, but they require safe switches, or they require to get in safely, is how I'll put it. So for Alligator, can kind of afford to switch in on things because his defense is base 100. His HP is base over 79, I think. He can kind of afford to do this, but you don't want to do that with your Wingmon if that's what Robin's problem has. So when I'm rating his momentum a 7, the reason that it's a 7 is kind of because it requires setup to get it going. Typhlosion can definitely get out of hand if it's Scarf with Eruption and nothing to cover it. Either Flash Fire or something that's outspeed it and Oko it. That can definitely get out of hand. But as for the other things that are momentum based, like for Alligator, the Belly Drum, Hypno, Nasty Plot, Rotom, V-Boost, again, these things require checks to be gone and safe switches in. Rocks can't be up if Yan Mega doesn't have boots. For Alligator, can't go in and sweep if there's a Pokemon with Water Absorb, or if there's a Pokemon that can wall his water attacks and his ice and fighting attacks as well. Hypno can't be sweeping unless he gets a safe switch in and gets that Belly Drum off safely, right? And then Rotom, of course, probably the easiest to set up, being that Ghost Electric bulky type with Levitate and immuning Ghost or immuning fighting and normal. Sorry, someone's playing music. He's gonna get the most if he's running an Nasty Plot set, since he can switch in on a choice locked close combat, or a choice locked normal move, or choice locked ground move, and then he can set up the Nasty Plot that way. So this isn't to say that Yan Mega and for Alligator and Hypno can't do this. It's just not as easy as how I put it. So he does have momentum in forms of Volt Switch, U-Turn, and Teleport. Volt Switch being on Rotom, U-Turn being on Yan Mega, and Teleport being on Hypno. All very good forms of of momentum. Although they don't really form fours. you can go between them, but they don't form like, you know, a really good core. Like, you know, I can't give you guys one off the bat, but you understand what I mean. Like a Volt turn core that really covers each other and they can just keep going between each other. Something that was really good with Scizor and somebody else in the. So yeah, I mean, I scored Reggie's team of 41 here. His team, in my opinion, is one of the most balanced out of everybody's draft, Sword and Shield side. And just the versatility that it has. The thing that I will mention is once you figure out what his offensive Pokemon are, if you can scout it safely, his team is a lot easier to deal with. And then his team is harder in the prep than it is in the matchup, I'd say. Not to say that the matchup's easy, but I find it harder in prepping for his team in the matchup, because you can scout the matchup, you can play, you know, you understand what I mean. But yeah, number 20. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you on number 21.